Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om.
Namaste Vedāntins, and welcome to the next episode. This time we're going to begin Adhikaran 3, that Brahman is the author and source of the knowledge in the scriptures. Now, this is the real stuff. This is it. This is as good as it gets on planet Earth in Kali Yuga. So I don't understand why more people aren't watching. Maybe it's because of the challenging quality of Śaṅkarācārya's work. Okay, point conceded. This is difficult. It's difficult even for me. It's challenging. And that's why I like it. Because Atma Bodha and, other similar works are nice, but they don't really go as deep as these commentaries. So I value them above all other scriptures, simply because they are like a summary, like a compendium, like a compilation of all the finest quotes from the Upanishads, and going into setting the context and the meaning for the whole thing. Like, one thing you'll notice in all these sutras is that it is assumed that Brahman is the subject. Brahman is never mentioned. Maybe in one or two sutras it's actually mentioned directly, but in all the others, it's simply assumed that, it's the Brahma-sutras. What else would it be about except Brahman? So you see, this is such a construct. It's more like algebra or calculus even than it is an ordinary religious scripture. If you look at the typical scriptures, like the Puranas of the Vedas, and of course all the Western scriptures, all the dualistic scriptures, they're nothing but stories. So-and-so said this and that. Such and such conquered these other guys. And, like histories, but with a point. And the ultimate point is to establish the worship of God. Now, that's good. In fact, it's absolutely necessary in human society, or humans turn into, no better than animals, which we're seeing over and over again in Kali Yuga. But to attain real human life, you have to follow some code of behavior which is aimed at realizing God, or at least serving and pleasing God in the Jagrat religious concept, external religion. However, here in Vedanta-sutra or Brahma-sutra, we are looking at a different aim. The aim here is not simply to worship or serve and please God and get some good karma. No. We're playing a different game. I think a superior game, because it requires that store of good karma to even get started. What is that? Self-realization. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. So, this is the end game. This is the highest level of spiritual consciousness, knowledge, and life. That one should become a Jivan Mukta and realize Brahman in this life. And then after this life is finished, there's no more individual existence. And just this exactly is the end of suffering. And that is what everyone is striving for in all their actions and thoughts and intentions, whether they realize it or not. Everything we do is to scratch some itch, isn't it? To fill some need or to acquire some desired object or condition. Therefore, it's all about the reduction or elimination of suffering. So everything that humans do is aimed at reducing or eliminating suffering, isn't it? That's the root, that's the motivation of all human behavior. So the ultimate reduction or the actually vanishing of all suffering is when one realizes one's identity with Brahman. So that is also an assumption here, because Brahma-sutra is based on the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are explicitly, openly, directly about self-realization. And of course, Śaṅkarācārya's commentaries on the Upanishads are brilliant, just like his commentaries on Brahma-sutra. But in Brahma-sutra, we have the advantage of referring to the context of all the Upanishads, or at least the 10 or 12 most important ones. So with this vast background or corpus or context of documents relating to self-realization, his comments are so, how can I say it, the scale of them, the scope of them is so awesome. This is what you have to consider, the ontological value of these commentaries. The range which they cover is just simply unparalleled, even in the Upanishads. Because all of the Upanishads put together is the source literature for Brahma-sutra. So where do we get this information? I mean, how do we get, into this mode of being, this mode of thought, and so on? Mode of perception? Through the scriptures. The scriptures are the source of the knowledge of Brahman. Someone might say, well, the scriptures are in the world. They're part of the world. That means they're part of Maya. So how can they reveal the absolute? How can they reveal that which is beyond Maya? And of course, the answer is this next sutra. Topic 3. Scripture as source of knowledge of Brahman. In the course of showing that Brahman is the source of the universe, it was implied in passing that Brahman is omniscient. By way of confirming this, the aphorist says, Shastra-yonitvat. Shastra-yonitvat, because of being the source of the scriptures. Sutra 3. Brahman is omniscient because of its being the source of the scriptures. Brahman is the yoni, that is, the material and efficient cause of great scriptures, shastras, like the Rig Veda, etc., which are supplemented by other scriptures that are themselves sources of various kinds of knowledge, which reveal all things like a lamp, and which are almost omniscient. Almost. Why not fully omniscient? Because, as I mentioned, the scriptures are part of the world. The scriptures are part of Maya. However, there is a special kind of Maya that leads out of Maya. So this particular category of knowledge is known as transcendent knowledge, or Brahma-vidya. Brahma-vidya is that knowledge which, once known, A, is never forgotten, B, becomes a state of being, more than just knowledge, and C, leads to realization of Brahman. For scriptures like the Rig Veda, possessed of all good qualities as they are, cannot possibly emerge from any source other than an all-knowing one. For it is a well-recognized fact in the world that the person from whom the scriptures dealing with multifarious subjects emerge is more well-informed than the scriptures themselves. For instance, grammar, etc., emanating from Panini and others, represent merely a part of the subject known to them. It goes without saying that great being has absolute omniscience and omnipotence, since from him emerge the Rig Veda, etc., divided into many branches and constituting the source of classification into gods, animals, men, castes, stages of life, etc., and the source of all kinds of knowledge. And since the emergence of these Vedas from that being occurs as though in sport and without any effort, like the breath of a man, as is stated in the Vedic texts, those that are called the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, etc., are but the exhalation of this great being. Brihadaranyaka 2, 4, 10. Well, Śaṅkarācārya never fails to astound. He's just so deep and reaches to the core of everything. And what is that here? Well, first of all, he makes the point, he's laying the ground of an inference again, that a great author or teacher of any branch of knowledge knows more about it than he is able to set down in writing. And if anyone is good at something, you know this is true of them. That, for example, I've made a bunch of recordings of music over the course of my life, but the recordings I've made is maybe 10% of the music I know, or the music that I could write, if I had unlimited skill, energy, and intelligence. Because the source of inspiration for music is also Brahman. And because Brahman is unlimited, so is music. Well, the same goes for Shastras, scriptures. Because Brahman is unlimited, Sat, Chit, Ananda, being, knowledge in the shape of consciousness, and bliss. Brahman's knowledge is also unlimited. So, because the scriptures, even though they're part of the world, are actually full of factual and correct knowledge, that knowledge represents only a portion of the complete knowledge present in Brahman. So in other words, to realize Brahman is to connect to this infinite store of knowledge about everything, because Brahman is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent. That means that this knowledge coming from Brahman is of the same quality, Sat Chit Ananda. So by delving into this knowledge, by making it a part of us, and ultimately realizing it in our being, we actually partake of that unlimited knowledge, at least in the area of self-realization. Because actually that's the only one we need, the only part of the transcendental knowledge that we need to realize the whole thing. Aum Tat Sat. Aum Shakti Aum. Om Namah Shivaya.